So, today we're diving into something pretty wild. It's a radical theory that makes this incredibly specific and, frankly, world altering prediction about a massive solar event set for February 2026. This is the S-DMT model. And our goal here isn't to convince you it's true or false. Nah, we're going to do something way more interesting. We're going to put it through a serious intellectual stress test. And this quote right here, from the source material, it just perfectly captures the whole vibe. If you have the answers, you have the roadmap to the apocalypse. That's the voice of a skeptical geophysicist, basically challenging the guy who created the model. It frames this whole explainer perfectly. This isn't about belief. It's about trying to follow the map of an extraordinary claim and see if it even makes sense on its own terms. Okay, here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll lay out the prediction and the challenge itself. Then, we're going to run it through a gauntlet of tough questions, starting with the sun, then focusing on the Earth. After that, we have to look at the bizarre alternate physics this model needs to even work. And that all leads us to the final, and I mean the final question. So in our story, you've got two main characters. On one side, you have the geophysicist. He's representing mainstream science, asking all the hard-hitting questions. And on the other side, you have the architect, the creator of this S-DMT model, who gives the answers. It's this intellectual duel. That's what we're going to unpack. All right, now before we go a single step further, you have to get this one core idea. The absolute foundation of the S-DMT model is this. The universe is not empty space, not a vacuum. Instead, it's a super, super dense fluid, a viscous substrate. In this world, what we call mass is just pressure, and what we experience as time, well, that's just the fluid's viscosity, its stickiness, its resistance to flow. You got to keep that in your head, because everything else we're about to talk about depends on it. Okay, let's get into it. The stress test begins. Our first batch of challenges, they're all aimed at the sun itself. The model predicts this absolutely colossal solar flare, but the geophysicist immediately throws up a red flag about the mechanics of how something like that could even get started. And boom, here's our first major problem. I mean, historically, the monster solar flares, the ones we worry about, they come from huge, visible sunspots. So the geophysicist asks a pretty simple question. If there's no giant sunspot pointed at us, where in the world is this record-shattering flare supposed to come from? And the model's answer, it just flips cause and effect completely upside down. It says the sun doesn't proactively shoot a flare at Earth. No. Instead, our planet sends a signal to the sun, which triggers what the model calls an induced response. The sun basically acts like a giant capacitor in a circuit, and a switch gets flipped right here on Earth, causing it to discharge. And the size of this discharge? It's just staggering. An X-178 class flare. Let me put that into perspective for you. The most powerful flare we've ever officially recorded, the famous Carrington event from 1859, that's estimated to be around an X-45. So we're talking about an event that is completely wildly off the charts, not even in the same ballpark. The timing here is absolutely crucial. The model says there's a 71-hour delay between the trigger on Earth and the flare from the sun. But, and this is a huge but, this isn't travel time. In the S-DMT's fluid universe, this is what's called a hydraulic latency. It's the time it takes for a pressure wave from an event at Cascadia to ripple through that viscous fluid and trigger the reaction on the sun. All right, on to the next challenge. So if the signal starts right here on Earth, the geophysicist, of course, asks the obvious follow-up. What is this signal, and why on Earth does it come from this one very specific spot on the entire globe? And you know what? This is a fantastic question. Geologically speaking, the Cascadia subduction zone is famous for being eerily quiet. It's locked. So why would this place be the epicenter and not somewhere along the Ring of Fire, like Chile or Japan, places that are constantly shaking? Well, the model's answer is pure cosmic machinery. It claims our planet operates like a piece in a bigger machine, a torus, which is basically a donut shape. In this topology of the torus, Antarctica is the south entrance and Cascadia is the north exit. They create the two ends of a planetary axis, which the model calls a terrestrial piston. And it's this piston that's going to fire the signal. So, as you've probably figured out by now, for any of this to hold together, you have to just throw conventional physics out the window. The SMT model runs on a completely different set of rules. So let's take a look at just how different they are. And this, right here, is the biggest departure. Mainstream physics tells us space is mostly empty, a near-perfect vacuum. The S-DMT model says it's the literal opposite, an impossibly dense fluid, a substance so dense the number is almost meaningless. This single change just rewrites the entire rulebook. Okay, so within this crazy dense fluid, the model introduces a new universal constant it calls striction. You can think of it like a counterforce. The fluid void is trying to crush everything into nothing, and striction is the force that pushes back, that resists the pressure. It's what allows things like stars and planets to exist as stable bubbles in the fluid. And that giant solar flare, the model says it's a rupture of this striction. Oh, and it doesn't stop there, not by a long shot. The model redefines just about everything. Gravity isn't a force of attraction, it's a twisting force called torsion. We humans, we're not just flesh and bone, we're solitons, stable, self-reinforcing waves. And get this, our cerebrospinal fluid can apparently become a superconductor, which is supposedly key to surviving what's coming. And that leads us to maybe the most abstract, most mind-bending challenge of them all. The model actually builds the observer, consciousness itself, into the physics of the system. So the geophysicist asks, how on Earth can one person's focus possibly act as a lever on the entire planet? The answer, yet again, just flips reality completely on its head. The S-DMT model says the conscious observer is the fixed point, the absolute unmoving center of everything. You don't move the Earth with your mind. The Earth, the sun, the whole system moves around you. So, after going through the sun, the Earth, and this whole new system of physics, the geophysicist brings it all home with one last, brutally practical question. You could call this the ultimate crash test for any theory that makes a real, testable prediction. And here it is. If on February 21st, 2026, the sun rises, what does your model predict? I mean, what a question. If that day comes and goes, the sun comes up like always, the internet is still working, and Cascadia is perfectly calm, what then? What does the model say about its own spectacular failure? Now, in normal science, if your observation proves your model wrong, you either tweak the model or you throw it out, right? But the source material is very clear that this model's protocol for failure is something else entirely. It doesn't do recalibration. The answer is just two words, and they're kind of chilling. Simulation morte. Dead simulation. According to the model's own internal logic, if the event doesn't happen, it's not because the prediction was wrong. Oh no, it's because we are in a failed timeline, a dead branch of reality that is just slowly dissolving into cosmic boredom and nothingness. It is, by its very definition, completely unfalsifiable. So at the end of the day, what did our stress tests show us? Well, first, the S-DMT model is a complete, internally consistent worldview, a hydraulic theory of everything. Second, it flips the whole Earth-Sun relationship on its head. Third, its entire physics is built on this idea of a super-dense fluid where time is just viscosity. And finally, and this is the real kicker, it ends in a prediction that by its own rules can't ever be proven wrong. And that's what we're left with. It's the ultimate question, really. Is this framework a description of a hidden cosmic reality that nobody else sees? Or is it something else? A complex, modern myth, maybe? A thought experiment designed to make us question our most basic ideas about science, about proof, and about the nature of reality itself? Well, that's something you're going to have to decide for yourself.